Chapter 1. Boy in the Back Alley. There were things that carefully lit up the dark night. The back alleys of the city shine brightly at night. On one side of the road that runs through the city, one side was asleep, and the other side was quietly raising its head. Two worlds of life that cannot mix. And only now was the time when people hidden by the bright light of the city could reveal themselves. An alley full of merchants soliciting customers and drunkards, shouting. There was a blonde-haired boy standing alone among the shabby things that were constantly moving. That's great. The place where the boy stopped was in front of the blacksmith shop, and there was a handsome sword hanging there. A sword that shines, showing off its slender body where anyone can see it. It was the only thing shining on its own in a dirty alley, and the light that started from the sword entered the heart through the eyes and was enough to illuminate something in the boy's soul. Note, because he stood in one place for so long, looking at the sword, his feet were sinking into the mud on the road, but the boy didn't care. And again, I'm losing my mind. There was someone approaching the boy who was staring at the sword as if he were looking at the sword. Vlad, do you know how crazy you are these days? People around me are starting to talk about this and that. The girl who was wearing worn-out clothes but had rich red hair was a colorful person who did not fit in with the back alley full of filth. The boy looked at the girl who spoke to him with blank eyes. What do you think? I don't have anything to do today anyway. If you ended brag, why is there nothing to do? Is it just work that Madame and Jorge tell you to do? The red-haired girl raised her palms and placed them in front of the boy's eyes. Do you see this? I've been soaking my hands in water so much while washing dishes that I'm starting to get eczema. For someone whose beauty is their asset, does eczema even matter? Where are you pointing me at? It's disturbing. The boy called Vlad frowned and removed the girl's open palm. It's one of the few moments of rest in my noisy day. Don't touch it. The boy's reaction could have been considered an outrage, but the red-haired girl didn't care. I couldn't live in a rough back alley just to get hurt by this level of cold treatment. Rather, the girl looked at Vlad's expression and carefully whispered into the boy's ear, sounding worried. So if I just hold on to something like a stick, I can still hear voices? It's it. The girl's brow furrowed as she saw the silent affirmation. What kind of crime did I commit in my past life to get to this point after being struck by lightning out of a dry sky? Even in the back alleys of a bustling city, the rumors going around were bound to be similar. And the rumor going around here these days is about a blonde boy who was struck by lightning out of the dry sky. Besides, even if you get hit by lightning, it's probably like this because you get hit by black lightning. If you're going to disturb me, just get out of my way. It's meted. A feeling of disappointment rose up in her throat at the boy's harsh rejection, but the girl kept her mouth shut and said nothing. I have to endure it, because I understood. The more rough a place you live, the more time you need to calm down. But can we stop going back now? But now was not a good time. Don't hang around for no reason, just stay in the store and stay still for the time being. You know the bishop is sensitive to such things. To what? The girl smiled deeply as she finally saw the boy looking at her instead of the sword. Symptom. The girl quietly approached Vlad's ear, as if she was wary of who might hear. The girl's breath, lingering in my ear, was tickling. He was promoted from the position of heretic inquisitor, so if he shows any sign of evil, he is burned at the stake. Mister. Vlad hurriedly picked his ears with his fingers and pushed the girl away. Did you spit? This is absurd. Really. The girl put her hand on her waist as if she was dumbfounded, seeing Vlad pushing away her favor as if it were dirty. Everyone is whispering behind my back, but I'm telling you not to stand here distracted. What are you going to do if you get caught and taken to church? Vlad didn't talk back this time, because there was nothing wrong with what the girl said, and I also knew that he was saying this out of concern for himself. But just look a little more. It's really frustrating. Just buy it on credit. How much is that? The girl got irritated looking at Vlad, who was still mumbling. I wonder how expensive it is to sell it at a blacksmith shop in a back alley. That's 5 gold. Hey, look a little more. The red-haired girl unconsciously opened her mouth when she heard the amount of money flowing out of the boy's mouth. With that one thing, I could have fun without doing anything for a year. Although I didn't have great insight to know the value of the sword in front of me, I at least knew the value of 5 gold. 5 gold. It's not like I couldn't earn it by working all my life, but this dark back alley wouldn't allow me to save that much money. Even if you work hard to save it, someone will steal it or steal it. Because that was the way of those who lived here. If it's that money. The moment when the boy and girl were momentarily intoxicated by the light emitted by the sword. What are these guys doing blocking the front of other people's stores so they can't do business? The owner of the blacksmith jumped out and shouted in a sharp voice, "This is not something that back alley bastards like you would aim for." An old blacksmith who chases away young onlookers with a loud voice. Perhaps because he had been watching the fire for so long, his eyes were sore even when he was still, and he was always frowning. What's the point of doing business in the back alleys and not selling to the back alley guys? The girl with curly red hair shouted in an angry voice, as if she was dumbfounded. "The two of us together have been here longer than you. Back alley bastards is a word that suits you better. This young prostitute who can't even sell her body yet, just keeps her mouth open." The old blacksmith, frowning, recognized the girl, who was talking back, and spat phlegm on the ground. "Go back to your store and do the dishes. This is all that has happened. Something that has come to fruition? What a done thing to a grown lady." The girl, who had a sense of entitlement due to her small stature, even vented her complaints about the boy to the blacksmith, as if it were a good thing. "But I'm debuting next year. If you pay for my virginity, that kind of knife is only worth a glass of beer." The girl stroked her proud red hair and smiled coquettishly at the old blacksmith. It wasn't hard to seduce someone, but the effort was just a fake smile. "I think I'll buy it then, and just use it to cut sausages." "This, you crazy bitch." The old blacksmith trembled as he saw the girl trying to use his sword, which he had carefully made for nothing more than cutting sausages. "This, to the back alley guys. I'm not selling it. It's hung in a back alley, so only people from the back alley can see it. So why aren't they selling it? You're senile. Why are you guys like this?" The boy's expression crumpled as what should have been the most peaceful time of the day turned into chaos. "Let's go now, Jamina. Gyeonggam will go. For the next 10,000 years, get the hell out of my store. Why don't you just make it like you normally would and create a sword that only knights use and create this mess? Isn't it time to die?" This person, Vlad, who realized that the other would not give in, hurriedly grabbed the back of the neck of the grinning Gemina and pulled her to the end of the alley. "Okay, it's because it's almost time to die, you bitch." The old man, who was shaking from his rising blood pressure, trembled with his hands, as if he was still angry, even though the girl's red hair was gone. "You rotten bitch. Maybe it's because you didn't manage to starve, but you're full of poison." The old man remembered children wandering around with blankets wrapped around them on a cold winter day. The 3 young tramps, who shared the warmth of one blanket, were able to survive because they ate the poison of the dirty back alley instead of someone's sympathy. "How much food did you give me back then, you damn bitch?" As soon as the red hair that annoyed him disappeared from the alley, the old man spat out phlegm again and suddenly felt something catching his eye. It was pathetic. "You idiot. Are you thinking about just making a living?" A single footprint deep in the dirty mud. The footprints that showed that he had been standing here for a long time were enough to awaken feelings other than anger toward the girl in the old blacksmith. The blacksmith shook his head and went back into his shop, sighing for someone else. "Nimi. The little ones are so annoying to the old man." The old blacksmith stretched his trembling hand high, lowered his dangling sword, and oiled the old cloth. "Sweetheart, it's hard to have a dream in a place like this." Despite what he said, the old blacksmith began to carefully polish the sword, which could be said to be his last work. I know very well. The wrinkles around the eyes of the old man cleaning his sword twitched. The young blacksmith, who had a dream, was crushed by reality, trapped in a back alley, and ended up sitting here, For black hair to turn white? Those born in the back alleys cannot escape from this area for the rest of their lives. The old blacksmith did that, and the boy standing here probably did that, and even the last masterpiece he created. But the old blacksmith still dreamed. I can't let my last work rot in a place like this. End quote. A bright light shone from the tip of the sword the old man picked up. So, I will only sell this to someone who can get out of here. In a dark alley filled with dirty poison everywhere, the old blacksmith hung his sword high once again. A shining star was hung in a dark back alley as the night sky. The sword, polished by the old man's unfulfilled dream, was shining brightly. For the boy whose feet were still in the mud, but whose eyes were still chasing the sparkling thing, the boy's eyes as he looked at the old man's sword resembled stars. Chapter 2. The City of Shorah. Shorah, one of the 3 cities owned by Count Bayezid's family, was always crowded with people. Not only is it the center of northern logistics where 2 rivers meet, but it is also a city that continues to develop due to the power of the Bayezid family, a prestigious family in the north. Because of this, people referred to the city of Shorah as a city that shines as brightly at night as during the day, and also called it the Lighthouse of the North. However, beneath the brilliance there is always a shadow hidden by the light. Hidden beneath the bright lights of the city, there was one area that everyone knew but turned their heads to. It was the existence of a slum where all kinds of dirty and filthy things in Shorah were gathered and packed into one area. The candle on the 2nd floor is 20 silver, and the candle on the 3rd floor is 30 silver. Is there anything extra if I buy a lot at once? 20 silver, 30 silver. Hey Vlad, take some more of the bread I gave you when you were begging. A fat middle-aged man with half a bald head shouted in a tongue-twisting pronunciation, but the blond boy didn't care at all. If you don't have money to pay, go home and massage your wife's butt. Uh-huh. Look at this noom shiki. Are you like this because you can't learn, because you don't have a mother or father? Don't do that. The air was damp with desire and lust. The constant sound of music and people's shouts were echoing through the ornately decorated 4-story building. Eyes, you bastard. No sound was coming into the ears of the drunk middle-aged man anymore. The only thing that captured all of his senses was the blue eyes of the blond boy sitting in front of him. His eyes had a strangely weighty look for a boy who had only just turned 16. I don't know who Abby is, and I guess it's because she died a long time ago, so I can't learn. Vlad lowered his head and continued speaking, tapping his fingers on the desk. The children of that family will not end up like me if their father lives a long and healthy life. 2nd floor. 3. The middle-aged man, who came to his senses as soon as he avoided Vlad's eyes, quickly grabbed the candle and dropped it like throwing a silver coin. Sir, is this a 100 silver coin? You take it all, you bastard. Have a good night, customer. You unlucky blue-eyed bastard. Vlad had been looking at me like he was going to eat me just a moment ago, but when I received the unintentional tip, I had no hesitation in bowing deeply. It's salty. Vlad whetted his appetite as he looked at the 100 silver coin in his hand. As Shorah was a developed city, there were many brothels, but there were few places as famous as the Smile of the Rose. This is because the owner and madam of this place, Marcella, was not only beautiful, but the quality of service provided between drinks and women was also excellent. Therefore, it was not difficult for Vlad, who just sat quietly selling candles in this always bustling place, to save a penny or two in the name of tips. Of course, the process was also difficult. Hey, you slut. He's just selling his body quietly, but he's even committing fraud. In the 2nd floor hallway, a prostitute was being dragged out by a customer and being beaten by her hair. What kind of fraud did I commit? I've been a mercenary for 20 years. They're selling medicine that doesn't work anywhere. The brown-haired prostitute was throwing her arms forward, as if she was more afraid of the man's fist swinging in front of her than of the shame of her breasts that were clearly exposed. There is no quiet day. Vlad sighed, took the candles in front of him, and went up to the 2nd floor. Customer. What's going on? Vlad. Please save me. Some kid came and said hello. Get a madam here, you bastard. Vlad quietly put down the box of candles he was holding in the hallway and sighed. If you want to meet our madam, you will need gold coins, not silver coins. What kind of gold coins are you talking about when you are running a shitty business? You bastard. If you don't have a madam, just bring your own mom. As the commotion that started in the second-floor hallway echoed throughout the building, several people who were drinking in the first-floor lobby began to watch with interest. There are coquettish prostitutes on their knees, holding a beer in his left hand and a cigarette in his right hand, to watch the most entertaining fight in the world. Shall I listen to you? Vlad covered his eyes with his palms and asked the man who said he had been a mercenary for 20 years. This second, the man shouted, throwing the candle at Vlad, who was angry. Isn't this 7 minutes long? What kind of bastard is that? I just took off my pants and it's all burning. Vlad stared at Adaptation Ch rolling at his feet, a rose candle used as a means of measuring time. This candle, which takes 7 minutes for each candle to burn, was a standard used to measure the time of customers and prostitutes, as well as a means of transaction. Okay then. Vlad searched through the box he had put down and picked up a candle used on the second floor. Do you see the clock in front of you? From now on, I'm going to light the candle and see if it lasts 7 minutes. There was no clock to tell the passage of time in the lobby on the first floor, where people had to have fun, but there was a clock on the second and third floors, where people had to be sensitive to time. Why should I listen to scammers? The man who said he was a mercenary crossed his arms and rejected Vlad's offer. Let's do it. And Tensure, I couldn't help but nod my head as I looked at the blue eyes in front of me. Eyes that can subdue others just by looking at them. Jorge, the boss of the organization, looked at Vlad's eyes and commented that he would be the leader in any alley. If it doesn't last 7 minutes, you can decide whether to keep beating the woman or not. Vlad said, striking a match on the sole of his shoe. Instead, if this really lasts 7 minutes, the customer will be beaten by me here. What? Vlad lit the candle without the mercenary having time to stop him. He put the candle down in the middle of the hallway and nodded. Vlad. Only the poor prostitute, shaking her shoulders anxiously, was looking at Vlad, not Cho. 1 minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes. As time passed, the attention of everyone gathered in the hall began to focus. The moment the mercenary's eyes widened as he was still holding the prostitute's hair. It's been 7 minutes, bastard. Vlad swung the club on his waist with lightning-like movements. Bah! Red blood splashed onto the mercenary's head from the harsh blow. Ah! Vlad's sudden blow creates a gap, and the prostitute, who had been captured so far, escapes. You missed today. Vlad grabbed the mercenary, who was still unconscious, by the neck, and dragged him into the room they had just left. Click. You committed the fraud first. A 20-year-old mercenary has this much belly fat? Bah! Quack. And why are so many people looking for my mom today? Would you rather live in sorrow under a sky without parents? Locked visit. The sound of blows and a man's screams were constantly heard inside. Vlad added to the anger he had been suppressing earlier and focused on striking down the man in front of him. Ah, that's right. Shut up, you bastard. When the drunken onlookers didn't see the fight they were expecting, they licked their lips and turned back to the prostitutes on their laps. Bah! The sound of clubs and the screams of men. As the black-haired woman sitting on the fourth floor gestured downwards, the music of the orchestra became louder. Some people cry, some people get angry, but all of that just flows quietly, buried by the loud music. This is Shorah. This is the smile of a rose. It was just a place where the passing lives gathered and stagnated for a while. After a noisy night, the quiet morning sunlight fell on the Rose Inn with silence. The smile of the morning, rose decorated with antique decorations, gave off the feeling of a nobleman's villa. Each ornate pattern contained the sorrow and tears of a dark-haired woman, but few people would recognize it. Vlad. Oh, Anna. There was a woman calling out to Vlad, who had politely left the last remaining customer on the floor of the alley. The corners of my eyes have turned blue. I need to rest for a few days. That's right. Still, what's not broken? She was a brown-haired prostitute who suffered violence from mercenaries last night. Thank you. A woman with black bruised eyes, smiling brightly, and handing something over. Vlad stared at what she was holding out. I'll eat well. It was an egg. Eat here, now. That's a raw egg. Vlad made a meaningful expression as he saw Anna smiling at him. Okay. Vlad cracks the bottom of the egg with his finger and swallows the porridge. The woman named Anna said happily watching Vlad's uvula move. I'm worried that men have become rough these days. In times like these, you need a man you can definitely trust. I ate well. Anna smiled bitterly as she looked at the eggshell on her palm. If you change your mind at any time, let me know. Wouldn't I make more money than that red-haired kid who looks like a millet? Maybe so. Vlad took a step forward with those words. Oh, indeed. Anna. Huh? Why? Anna looked at Vlad with her eyes wide open in anticipation. Aren't you opening the front door too much? It's still winter, so you need to take good care of yourself. This is also a sign of gratitude. Only after Vlad pointed out did Anna cover her breasts. When he looked up again, Vlad, who was in front of him, had already disappeared to the end of the hallway. The only thing that can be sold is the body. But this is not enough. In the middle of a hallway with no one around, the woman with no one to rely on smiled sadly. And, Jorge. Someone played a prank on me early on. The first floor is a lobby that sells alcohol and food. The second and third floors are window rooms. And the fourth floor is the living space for prostitutes and employees. Vlad reported to the man who was eating breakfast in the restaurant on the fourth floor. It wasn't 7 minutes. Okay? The huge man named Jorge was not paying much attention to Vlad's report. It wasn't 7 minutes. Huh, okay. They said so. Grilled sausage, black pudding, hash browns on white wheat bread. The breakfast that Jorge always ate was the same. And just like the diet he ate, the man named Jorge was a man who never changed. Did you understand what I said? Someone put a candle to our food line? No, who dared to do that? The black-haired woman who was making breakfast in front of Jorge interrupted with a mischievous smile. Now we have to find out who did it. Of course I have to find it. Am I looking for you? You find it. What am I looking for? Actually, I already found it. Who is that? Marcella. Marcella, the owner of the Rose Smile. She has such outstanding beauty that she is ranked among the top 5 in Shorah. Although she was in her mid-30 seconds, she still maintained her beauty. She had the appearance of a bright woman and the smile of an innocent girl. It's me. I was kidding. I wanted to easily get some honey while eating away at drunk people. Garbage words came out from the plump red lips that all men coveted. Vlad lowered his head as if he was shocked. I just screwed up that stupid guy. The owner said that, but what can the employee say? If the candle had been put on the railing instead of the hallway floor, it would have been a mess. I deliberately placed it on the floor just in case. If that had not been done, the onlookers on the first floor would have recognized that the seconds were not 7 minutes long. After hearing Madame's announcement, Vlad stood up from the chair in a weak posture. Where are you going? Let's go eat. I'll go down for a moment and come back. Why? I'll at least put a blanket on the guy who just threw it away. You're so kind. Vlad comes down the stairs with trembling steps. Even though he felt no remorse for blowing off an innocent man's head, it was one of Vlad's beliefs that he should still do the bare minimum as a human being. Was it the nature of the back alleys here, that if those beliefs were not firmly established, one would quickly be swept away by the dark waves? Hey, my proud junior! There was a voice that grabbed Vlad as he came down to the first floor. Don't touch it. I'm tired today. I heard you did something yesterday. As expected, my proud junior, he was a burry belonging to the Jorge family. Did you get some tips while selling candles yesterday? Your seniors have something to write about today. At the end of Vlad's gaze, members of the Jorge family were visible. Fuck you. No, don't do that, just listen to me. We are not scumbags who forcefully take money from our juniors. Beret came close to Vlad, putting his arm around his shoulder. What a ripoff. It's about giving and receiving. If you give us money, we have something to give too. It means something like this. What is that? Burley narrowed his eyes, as if he had finally understood what was being said. Follow me. When Burley nodded, the other members of the Jorge family moved out of the way. It's in the basement. Vlad followed Beret's guidance and walked with him into the Rose Smile basement. This place, where alcohol and food ingredients are stored, is an important place in the operation of Rose of Miso, so it was also a place managed by Burley, whom Jorge cherished. In other words, this was Burley's territory. Nimi. How is it? It's a familiar face, right? Vlad, who was still the youngest member of the Jorge family, needed his permission to take anything from here. Just give me 40 silver and I'll give it to you. This is really cheap. Where else can you find such a good senior? There was something squirming behind Burley, who was smiling humorously. A child looking at Vlad pitifully, with blood streaming down his forehead. He was a child with black skin. Chapter 3. Boy in the Back Alley. You're a pickpocket. Burley spoke from behind Vlad, who was looking frustrated. It was awkward, stupid, and incompetent. That's why I got caught. It's prevalent. Rather than answering Burley's words, Vlad was looking at the condition of the child writhing on the floor. Did you cut your finger? No. Did you cut your ankle? No. Burley smiled as he saw Vlad asking about the young pickpocket's condition, because he was confident that his cute junior would definitely hand over the silver coins. It's so fresh. I just cleaned it up a bit. Can I go ahead and eat it raw? Ha 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 ha. Then, I even beat it up a bit to make it taste good. The Jorge family behind them burst out laughing, as if they thought Beret's words were funny. Good. Vlad sighed and took out a shiny silver coin from his pocket. Also, I was confident that our proud junior would agree to a deal. Next time, don't call me, just kill me. Why are you doing this? We are gang members, not killers. On the topic of people who prey on the same family. Even when Vlad, the youngest member, said harsh words, the members of the Jorge family just laughed, because they already recognized Vlad, who survived the rough back alleys. The little brother's harsh complaints were something that could be tolerated by a man. Brothers are going for a drink. Go and catch a venereal disease. As expected, a promising candidate. Vlad's stick is spicy and his tongue is sharp. I don't know if the stick in the middle is spicy too. Ha ha ha. Moreover, Vlad stood out, even at a young age. No matter where you are, sharp awls are bound to stick out of your pockets. Vlad, who not only survived unscathed, but also captured young outcasts in the back alleys, had already attracted the attention of various organizations active in the slums. It is an object of envy for young outcasts in the back alleys who have not yet been called to the organization. The boy is the #1 recruit for organizations in need of talent. That was the value held by a 6-year-old boy named Vlad. Wake up, before I kill you. Yup, Vlad said, tapping the bound boy with his toes. Did you see that I just got ripped off? Know the mood. Huh. Following Vlad's bloody warning, the dark-skinned child whose hands were bound and gagged rolled around on the floor and with all his might somehow succeeded in standing up on his own. Paha. Sorry, Vlad. I tried to get away with it in moderation. Vlad couldn't tell whether he was sorry for pickpocketing or for getting caught, but he could tell that the black boy in front of him was sincerely apologizing. Sigh. Evil. I'm really pissed. After vigorously hitting the black boy on the back of the head, Vlad rubbed his eyes with both palms as if he were tired. 5 gold is getting further away again. Do you need money? Then borrow it. To One-Armed Jack. Rather than borrow money from that person, I'd rather eat rat poison. When the name of another boss who controlled the back alleys like Jorge was mentioned, Vlad shook his head. Where did it break? No. Then get the hell out of here, you bastard. Are you going to tell your brother? Whether or not he knew that he had almost become a half-asshole, the black boy was simply afraid that his older brother would find out what had happened. I will receive 40 silver from your brother. No, Vlad, please. Then your brother will give me 40 silver and you idiot will get 400 silver. Doc, in the prize. Seeing Vlad's blue eyes unwavering, the black boy smiled fearfully and predicted the coming future. I shouldn't get caught next time. Maybe it's because I'm stupid, but there's no progress at all. Vlad sent the young pickpocket out of the store with a sullen expression, pledging his next success. Vlad, who watched the black boy disappear at the end of the alley, raised his head and looked up at Rose's smile. Without the flashy lights, Rose's smile seemed full of silence. However, today is a day when I need someone's comfort. Today I killed an innocent customer, heard about the corruption of a bright madam, and even had my money stolen by my seniors. Normally, I would have gone to sleep with a rose-like smile on my face, but I decided to embrace the bright sunlight just for today. Vlad moves in the opposite direction the black boy moved. He could feel a thick, fishy smell mixed with water mist through the tip of his nose. Jorge, the Knight of the Whores. Money-making one-armed Jack. Pig butcher, Black Bear. Dice in a gambling hall. And whale hunter, Captain Hoover. These 5 were the bosses who currently ruled the slums of Shorah. So you came to see me? Do you have any money? And the man named Haven that Vlad came to was a member of the whale hunter Hoover's organization. The first thing you say as soon as you see each other for a long time is, "Give me money?" 5 gold is enough. If I lend money to the person who robbed me, can I get it back later? There was nothing I could do. No. You have no credibility. Haven shakes his head. Although Haven had featureless brown hair rather than flashy blonde hair like Vlad, his impression was just as strong as Vlad's. You too are too much. How can you ask a disabled person who is not physically fit to lend you money? It was a small room that would be full if 2 people were sitting in it. Therefore, even Haven, who was crippled on 1 foot, was able to retrieve a bottle from the cupboard by relying on a cane. Even with my left hand, which has only 3 fingers, eat that and get out. My brother is busy. Is this okay to eat? Vlad opened the bottle and frowned as he smelled a suspicious smell coming from the alcohol. This is Captain Hoover's masterpiece, Captain Q. If 2 people drink it, 3 people will die. I guess I can use it as poison later. Vlad gave up drinking the suspicious drink and sat in front of Haven and watched him work. A small room, an unsightly desk filled with stacks of paper and numbers and letters written densely inside them. And Haven, who goes through it without stopping. Obviously, I can read and write, but I don't know what's written there. I told you that too. I only know how to read numbers. I told you that too. A smile stayed in Haven's eyes as he listened to Vlad's grumbling words. Haven was like a benefactor to Zemina and Vlad, because he was the one who gave his blanket to Gemina and Vlad, who were rolling around in the back alley when they were children. If it weren't for the warmth he provided, Zemina and Vlad would have frozen to death long ago, and if it wasn't for the bread he stole, they would have starved to death long ago. Still, the kid was lucky. They set pickpockets and cut them here and there like I did. In the dup and requited. There are good times too. The 3 of them made a living by pickpocketing when they were wandering around the back alleys, but that ended when Haven became a half-asshole. So unlike the last bishop, this bishop is more interested in other things than pickpockets. Haven was not so lucky. This is because the bishop, who was in Shorah at that time, was sensitive to theft and pickpocketing. Normally this would have ended in a beating, but as a demonstration of the bishop's tendencies, Haven had his fingers cut off and his left ankle slit. Haven's pitiful screams echoed through the back alleys, but no one came to protect the young outcast who was like the dregs of the city. Fortunately, at a time when Haven was unable to make a living, Vlad had grown to the point where he could feed the 3 of them. In the nick of time, Vlad, Gemina, Haven was able to survive by feeding each other. What did this bishop say he was sensitive to? Pedophilia. Oh, that's right. Ha ha ha. I remember Gemina making noises. Depending on the inclinations of each bishop in the city, the church rules changed slightly. Unlike the previous bishop, the new bishop, who was appointed to Shorah 5 years ago, was more interested in children than thieves and pickpockets. That's why Gemina's debut date was forcibly postponed, right? Madam is being careful. Because the store is famous, it will attract attention from the church. It was natural for young girls in the back alleys who had nothing to sell but their bodies to engage in prostitution, regardless of their age. However, all of that was banned due to the newly appointed bishop 5 years ago. Anyone who has sex with a girl who is not an adult will be excommunicated, because this was the main doctrine put forward by this bishop. Unfortunately or fortunately, as a result, Gemina, who has not yet become an adult, ends up doing nothing more than washing dishes. Perhaps until she reaches her age, Gemina will have no choice but to remain a virgin under the protection of the church and her madam. What a chaste wannabe whore. What a pregnant virgin. Ha ha ha. Besides, my body still hasn't grown at all. Even if Gemina becomes an adult, anyone who sleeps with her will definitely be excommunicated, right? He won't grow up until he dies, right? Haven, who had been giggling about Gemina for a while, was smiling but unconsciously looking at the wall. Cell. When I cleared away the smell of dust and paper and concentrated, there was a smell that could be felt. It was the smell of the river. Captain Hoover's base, which mainly engaged in smuggling, was located on the dockside, and beyond the wall facing Haven was the river that fed the city of Shorah. A river that is wide and green and can go anywhere. Unlike Haven, who was tied up here. What? Just like Gemina can't grow up until she dies, I don't think I can get out of here until I die. End quote. Vlad felt sad that he couldn't say no to Haven's words. By the way, Vlad, there was something I wanted to say to you. Huh? The brilliant Haven looked over his shoulder and learned how to read and understand numbers. I did this because I knew that I could survive if I carried more things than others. Because he was such a bright Haven, he was able to get a job even though he was physically uncomfortable. Because Haven was such a brilliant person, even though he was in a small room, he was able to understand the letters and numbers written on the documents and how Shorah worked. Be careful. What? I heard there was someone playing with a candle at Rose's smile this time. Has it already spread here? Although it was somehow alleviated by Vlad's improvisation, the players were probably aware of it all. The fact that the only person who can touch the candle is Madame Marcella. Marcella is not that type of person. Yes, if you did it, even though you weren't the type of person to do that, it means there was a reason you had to do it. Reason? Vlad looked at Haven through the shaking bottle of liquor. I guess you need money, Marcella. And that too, in a hurry. Haven's face was distorted as he looked through the sticky brown liquid. There is only one case when an organization is in a hurry to raise money. Vlad. Haven spoke to Vlad in a serious voice. Only when there is a war with another organization. Vlad had nothing to say in response after hearing Haven's words. All I did was shake a bottle of alcohol. Be careful. These were Haven's last words to Vlad, who was getting up with a bottle of alcohol. But even if he had heard the warning, there was no way Vlad could have been careful. Wow, the alcohol tastes really dirty. This was a place where, in order to survive, you had to take something from someone. And in order to take it, you had to hurt someone. In the meantime, it is inevitable that you will get hurt. 2 people eat together, and 3 people die. Imagine classed, maybe I will die. This back alley was where the moth-like beings who lived with such danger gathered. And Vlad also knew that very well. That you are also just one of the fleeting moths. It shines. Although his vision was fading due to the strong alcohol, there was one shining thing shining through Vlad's eyes. The boy stood in front of it and looked at the endlessly shining thing. It's a light worth 5 gold. Although he was comforting himself with cheap solo drinks in a dark back alley that was difficult to escape from, the boy was still looking at the stars. Like a moth chasing a fire, I stared at the old blacksmith shop for a long time. Chapter 4. Nights of Whores. Accidents happen without warning. Destruction happens without warning. The dark things in life always hide in the shadows and come silently behind us. Just like now. Hey kid, where is your boss? A shadow of a strange shape appeared in front of Vlad, who was selling candles. It was huge, but its left arm was strangely bent. It looked like a person with an alien hook, instead of where it should have been. Vlad, who recognized who was talking to him, swallowed his saliva and was embarrassed. I'm a candle seller, so I don't know that much. With his characteristic boldness, he grasped the situation and gave the answer he needed to give. Bang! At the same time, as he said that, one-armed Jack's subordinates hit the desk where Vlad was sitting. What boss is talking about a bastard who doesn't even have blood on his head? In the fast to mentored, colorful roses fluttering as the man shouts, everyone's attention was focused on Rose's smile at the suddenly dangerous atmosphere. The atmosphere hardens. A feeling of silence comes. The red-haired girl covered her mouth with both hands and hurried to the 4th floor when she saw this. Oh my! However, even in this situation where everyone was frozen, there was one person who moved naturally. Even under the pressure of men who are one head taller than him, the candles are all gone. This is expensive. This crazy bastard. One-armed Jack's subordinate's face turned red as he watched Vlad calmly picking up the candles that had fallen on the floor, ignoring his warning. But Vlad didn't stop there. Tuk-tuk, Vlad said, patting the feet of the man who was trembling and barely holding back his anger. Brother, please clean your feet. A man who tries to kick the boy under his feet, as if he can no longer endure Vlad's cleverly provoking words. Mutter. Fighting is a microcosm of war, intended battlefield and planned situation, and only bold decisions promised victory. And Vlad knew it well. It was a threatening situation to anyone, but Vlad seemed to have been waiting for the situation, so he pulled out his club like lightning and struck the man's ankle mercilessly. That was the intention from the beginning. Bah! Oops! A man screaming with a light hitting sound. A moment when I lost my balance due to an unexpected attack and was shaken for a moment. Yeared. Seizing the opportunity, the energy of the blue eyes became fierce. Vlad stood up with animalistic movements without wasting a moment. Puck! Vlad, who quickly pinned his upper body, struck him in the jaw with the club he was holding, and his pure white teeth popped out in disarray. It was an action planned in my head. Sigh. At the same time, Vlad struck the man in the chest with a sharp backward kick, and at the same time safely widened the distance. A move that brings 2 benefits with 1 movement. This is the main room of your house. Vlad, who clearly had the upper hand, shouted the words that started in his heart and threw the club he was holding accurately. Bah! It struck the forehead of a man who was already struggling and falling backwards. It was a bold move. Ka! Bang! In the blink of an eye, the large man fell as helplessly as a rotten tree from Vlad's repeated blows. What? Even though their colleague fell, one-armed Jack's men could only open their mouths wide, and none of them could move easily. A blow that caught one off guard. The violence that the boy wielded was something no one expected. Hoo-ook. Hoo-ook. Off. So of the 2, the only one standing was a blond boy with a fierce look in his eyes and controlling his breathing. Winners on top, losers on the bottom, reproducing one of the unchanging laws of the back alley. Have lever, have look. One-armed Jack's subordinates were mesmerized by the sudden situation. If we were to measure time alone, it would have been an exaggeration to say that it happened in a matter of minutes. You bastard! How dare you in front of someone? The big guys who had finally figured out the situation became angry and tried to attack Vlad. Stop! With a deep voice, he stopped like an obedient dog. I really like this guy. His subordinate fell without even swinging his fist properly, but one-armed Jack instead clapped happily. Although there was only a small sound of the palm meeting the cold hook. Please understand that I can't make a sound because I only have one arm. I don't discriminate against people with disabilities. Ha ha ha, you crazy bastard. One-armed Jack laughed out loud as he looked at the young gang member who dared to raise his chin proudly in front of him. I'll see you later. The Sikh. Vlad realized that this was the final line allowed to him. The moment you cross this line that one-armed Jack has so generously allowed you, will be ignoring his authority and what will happen if you do so. Moneybug, what's going on here? Fortunately, there was a large man coming down the stairs at that moment. A grizzled man walking down wearing a shining breastplate like a knight, with his subordinates following him. Jorge, the knight of the whores. In Jorge's footsteps, I could sense a presence that was different from usual, overwhelming someone. If I had sent the message in advance, I would have roasted your meat. Boss and boss. An imminent situation faced by an organization. The knight who protects the roses smiled fiercely as he welcomed a sudden, uninvited guest. No, well, it's not like we were communicating that privately. One-armed Jack answered while scratching his head with his hook. Two bosses smiling with their mouths, but holding their swords and talking on the inside. The guests who visited Rose's smile were holding their breath and looking as if the current scene was more important than the naked women next to them. We have guests, so why not come up first? Do you have any meat? Marcella is a woman who doesn't shy away from treating guests. And the Gever Grammont. Well then, as he headed to the 4th floor, the heart of Jorge's organization, One-Armed Jack's actions were extremely bold. That was the distribution of the person who ruled the back alleys of the city of Shorah. Do you like that, little boy? At One-Armed Jack's nod, Jorge looked at Vlad, who was catching his breath. Jack's subordinates, who were still unconscious, were lying sprawled at the boy's feet. Because he is a promising member of our organization. Who did I take instead of that guy last year? I don't even remember it, so I guess I looked it up too early. Jorge narrowed his eyes at Vlad as he walked up with One-Armed Jack. It was a sign that the boy's mission as Chopal and the gatekeeper of the castle called Rose's Smile had been successfully accomplished. I almost fell behind. Only after seeing Jorge's signal did Vlad relax. As the leaders of the two organizations slowly ascending the stairs disappeared from sight, Vlad kicked the fallen figure. Brother, the candle on the 2nd floor is 20 silver, and the candle on the 3rd floor is 30 silver. Just pay for what you broke and go. Don't pretend to sleep. Before I throw the club one more time. One-Armed Jack's subordinate, who had fallen, heard the sound and only responded with a faint groan. Oh my Vlad, look at the wound here. This needs to be treated in advance. That's right. If it adds up, you'll be in big trouble. I happen to have a medicine that's good for wounds. It was a short battle, but Vlad was checking for any possible injuries. Why are they like this all of a sudden? Women began to cling to Vlad's side. Oh, look at what he says. How worried we were about you. I feel sorry for you when I say that, Vlad, for how much I have fed and taken care of you. It's crazy. Prostitutes flocked to Vlad's side, acting out of character. For those women who made a living by selling their bodies, just having a man who worked hard was by their side made business much easier. Plus, the guy is young and promising. Sai, kya? Look at his muscles. When did you grow up like this? The man is done. Everyone please go away. Especially if it is a handsome man with blonde hair and blue eyes that everyone prefers. Vlad, who had clearly proven his worth through the fight just now, seemed like prey that would be hard to miss in the eyes of the prostitutes. Vlad chased them away, swearing at them, but even his unique rebellious appearance was only an attractive factor to the prostitutes. Because even though Vlad speaks harshly, everyone already knows that he is kind to women. Get out of the way. Get out of the way. You bitch. What do you know about your seniors? What are you doing? On the topic of those who want to take what belongs to others, there was a girl who was approaching those prostitutes. It's crazy. It's crazy. Unlike the girls who gave him tempting looks, Zemina started slapping Vlad on the back as soon as she saw him. Why are you so damned? You did it first. What are you doing to a big guy? I did it because it was worth it. It's worth it. What a difference in weight class. Are you an asshole? Is your eye sprained? Gemina was hitting and scolding him, but Vlad only frowned and did not take any particularly threatening action, because he knew very well that all her actions were because she was worried about him. Just do the dishes. Why did you come here, you idiot? However, growing up in a rough place, it was inevitable that harsh words would come out. Jorge has been there for a long time. You idiot. Don't swear. Jorge has been there for a long time. You idiot. A friend. Although he knew that his wrong reaction had caused Zemina to become entangled, Vlad decided to stand up, because Jorge's call was more important than Gemina's sulk. A staircase that passes through the smile of a rose. As Vlad was going up through there, he saw One-Armed Jack and his men coming down the stairs. Hey, prospect. Yes. Even though he was not the boss he served, Vlad was polite to him. I liked you. If you lose your job later, come work for me. One-Armed Jack said, tapping Vlad on the head with his hook. The welfare benefits here are also good. Give me food and money. Let me sleep. We can do that too. Vlad bowed his head as he saw off One-Armed Jack, who was passing by with a smile. Oh, indeed. One-Armed Jack turned around as if he suddenly remembered something and threw something away in his arms. Ting! It was shiny. This is... My subordinate broke the candle, right? That's the price. Vlad looked down at his palms blankly. It was a gold coin. There are too many. I'll give you as much as you want if you come to me. I'm a moneymaker. As soon as the short conversation with Vlad ended, One-Armed Jack waved his hand and shouted without even looking back. I had a good time. Jorge. With those words, Jack's subordinates come out giggling and smiling like roses. They came in like a storm and went out like the ebb of the tide. They disappeared, leaving a big mark on Rose's smile. I'm Priestess. After confirming that One-Armed Jack had left the store, Vlad put the gold coins in his arms and hurried up the stairs. The 4th floor, where Jorge is located. Up there, not only Jorge, but also Beret and other subordinates were lined up. The 4th floor was always full of laughter and the smell of greasy food, but right now there was only a suffocating silence. Jorge, I'm here. Sit down. Perhaps because One-Armed Jack hadn't eaten much, there were plenty of meats grilled by Marcella in front of Jorge. What did Jack say? One doured. Instead of answering Vlad's words, Jorge handed over the knife he was cutting the meat with. What is this? Am I giving you a knife now? Okay. You take it. I just cut it, and it was okay. Vlad didn't have a sword yet. This is because Vlad, the youngest member of the Jorge family, has not yet been qualified to hold a sword. Wow! Although it was not as fancy as the sword hanging in the blacksmith shop, the sword that Jorge gave him was longer than any blade Vlad had ever held. I was originally going to give it to you, but due to the circumstances, I gave it to you a little early. Thank you. The dagger that Jorge gave me was not simply given for practical use. A knife given directly by the boss. It was proof that he not only proved his worth, but also gained the trust of his boss. Keep kicking it forward. Please ask Beret for the dagger sheath. All right. Looking at Vlad, whose eyes were sparkling and happy, Jorge smiled bitterly. Vlad, yes, you always have to wear it. Yes. Jorge's eyes became heavier than usual. Vlad, who was happy to receive the dagger, then began to look around. All right. Organization members with subtly stiff expressions. I will definitely wear it. A boss who handed a knife to even the youngest member of the organization. Vlad could sense it through the flowing air. That the conversation between Jorge and One-Armed Jack was a disaster. Chapter 5. Nights of Whores. An empty lot that can only be reached by going deep into the back alleys of the city. There was a boy sweating beatingly, swinging a wooden stick. Sigh. Although it was a small and unsightly place, it was the first territory that Vlad had gained on his own. For a boy who had been unable to hold anything in his hands since birth, it was the first thing he had achieved through struggle. And until a few years ago, it was also the place where the hut that housed Vlad, Zemina, and Haven was located. There's no need to fix it. A hut that used to be one's home but has now collapsed because it cannot be used by humans. Vlad, who had been staring at it, turned his head again and began to focus his mind on the tip of the stick. Everything that has a shape is destined to collapse. It may look sad, but it has served its purpose, so we just need to remember it. Because I won't be going back there anymore. Boom! The blonde boy constantly repeats the basics that Jorge hinted at, promising in his heart that he will never go back to the way he was before. It was a cold winter, but the boy's back was already full of sweat. Vlad was like a hedgehog, surrounded by thorns of pride. But he was also a child who always had a desire to learn. Haven showed it. Through his brilliant mind, he learned letters and numbers on his own, and is now using them to work under Captain Hoover. Haven is a disabled person who has his fingers cut off and cannot even walk properly. If he had neglected his studies, he would probably have been starving and begging somewhere in a back alley by now. Sigh. The experience of learning through effort and rising to a higher level through learning. It was a difficult experience for people in the back alleys, living without any hope. But Vlad was a witness who saw it right next to them. That's why I was swinging a wooden stick after finishing my day's work. However, Vlad, who was repeating the basics while sweating, began to frown. Shit, if you just swing at something, it's all hell, really. It was a quiet, vacant lot, with no one around. But only Vlad could hear it clearly. Someone's voice echoing in my head. Vlad shook his head vigorously to ignore it. The boy should narrow the angle of his elbow when he strikes down. However, an unknown voice was persistently speaking to Vlad. Even if you covered your ears and warned you to be quiet, it was a voice you could hear as long as you were holding something similar to a sword. I should start by buying holy water with the money I got this time. I couldn't tell if it was advice or interference, but the sound of it coming every time I practiced was enough to confuse the boy's mind. Why did lightning strike me at that time? Vlad began swinging the wooden stick in frustration and anger. For a boy who was overwhelmed just thinking about survival, the current situation was enough to make him vent his anger. It was a month ago. Just like now, I started hearing voices coming from Vlad's head. A month ago, a bolt of lightning suddenly struck Vlad while he was walking down a back alley. No matter how alert the boy was, it was impossible to stop the lightning that fell from the sky. It was literally a thunderbolt in a dry sky. That alone was a strange, natural phenomenon that was difficult to explain, but the problem was that the lightning that fell had a dark, black appearance. The events of that strange and ominous day, which were difficult to explain to anyone, were still following Vlad in the form of rumors to this day. Rumor has it that Vlad was possessed by the devil. So I went to church and made an offering with the money I didn't have, and the ominous content contained in the rumor was somewhat true. Vlad, who was aware of this, tried to prove his innocence and solve the problem by hurriedly going to church, making donations, and helping with chores. I just threw away money for no reason. Despite Vlad's efforts, the voice was still heard. The boy became angry when he realized that everything he had done so far was in vain. However, if he told the church that there was someone speaking to him in his head, Vlad, who was just a boy from an alley, might be caught and burned at the stake. No, it won't. Because the world was harsher on the weak. Whoa! Vlad, who had been wheezing angrily for a while, felt that the being talking to him had quieted down. Ignore it. They said the more I answer, the more I stick to it. Remembering Gemina's words, warning him, Vlad tried to regain peace. Vlad! Long live Jorge! He is at D. I frowned when the girl I was thinking about just a moment ago came out right next to me. That's it for today. Vlad was a man who could not just sit back and train comfortably like the sons of noble families. He was just a person from the back alleys who had to starve for 2 days if he didn't work for 1 day. Okay, come quickly. I knew you were practicing, and I purposely bought you some time. I said I understood. Now it was time to wake up from the dream and go to the shabby reality. Before answering Gemina's call, Vlad decided to swing his stick one last time. Whoa! Always do your best in the end. Concentrate all your mind and strength. Hit it down. Narrow it down. And at that moment, a voice echoed sharply in my head. Startled by that voice, Vlad unconsciously narrowed the angle of his elbows. Boom! Unlike before, I could feel the wooden stick being hit hard, along with the sound of the fierce wind. Wow! It fell so cleanly that even Gemina, who was staring blankly from the side, looked surprised. Shit! Only then did Vlad have no choice but to admit it. It was correct to narrow the angle of the elbow. and that the unknown being inside his head knows how to use a sword. If what I had done until now was just a swing, because what I just followed the voice down was a sword road. Although it is described as a back alley, it was clearly a part of the city. As the size of Shorah was huge, the area called the back alley was also large. So naturally, a section that could be called a downtown was created in the back alley. Because the territories of the 5 bosses who ruled the back alleys were divided around this area, each gang member refrained from making a big fuss or acting out in the downtown area. Therefore, it was always a place full of the voices of drinkers and merchants. Not now. It's Slived, Endevar, Vlad and Gemina were walking down a busy back alley. The two of them always bickered and exchanged words, but now they had no choice but to quietly walk down the alley without saying a word. It's too quiet. Everyone knows. Vlad quietly turned his head and looked at the stores in the downtown area. Some stores were completely closed, and those that were open had all their stalls inside. It looked like it was ready to close at any time. I think everyone thinks it's going to be a big hit this time. You had this scrowed. There have been several instances in which members of the organization have clashed with one another, but it has been a long time since anything as violent as this one has occurred. The merchants in the downtown area probably expected a big storm, as it had been lying there for a long time. Are you okay? Zemina looked at Vlad, who spoke indifferently, and asked. Vlad may have to take the lead in the approaching storm. Although she did not show it, Gemina was trembling with anxiety that the boy she had been closely attached to for so long would not have much time left before he would plunge into wanton violence. The boy named Vlad was a friend, a family member, and one of the few people the girl could rely on. You shouldn't go out alone for a while. No, it would be better to just not leave the store. So, however, rather than answering Gemina's question, Vlad was focusing on the men looking at them from the other end of the downtown area. There, one-armed Jack's subordinate, whom he had defeated, was staring with his eyes wide open. Okay. Gemina naturally left her behind and answered, while looking at Vlad, who was exchanging murderous glances with someone. It has always been like this. Vlad never hesitated to fight someone to protect himself. Gemina was always grateful for that, but she couldn't say it out loud. But now he thought that perhaps he should convey the words he had kept in his heart before it was too late. Vlad and Gemina passed through the downtown area with different thoughts and arrive at the Rose's Smile. As the two people entered the store and opened the door, the attention of the employees sitting in the lobby focused for a moment and then dispersed. What are you all doing? Aren't you working? Vlad asked out loud, but no one answered him. Last inspection time before opening Rose's Smile. It was a busy time with the employees moving around and arranging furniture and the women fixing their makeup. But now they were just gathered in groups of 2s and 3s, talking quietly. It's annoying. The tension on the streets was reaching here. Is there some kind of war? Vlad, who was appalled by that sight, grumbled and went up to the 4th floor where Jorge was. What will happen anyway. Vlad's eyes turned cold as he looked at the people gathered together like rabbits in fear. The boy, who was bold in nature, found it difficult to understand these aspects of ordinary people. I called. Jorge? Okay. And that was what Jorge expected from the boy. When Vlad came up to the 4th floor, he saw Jorge laying out food as usual. The boy was relieved to see that. Jorge was from the same family as himself. I heard you called me? Huh. You don't sell candles from today? Vlad's lips lifted after hearing Jorge's words. Some people said it was good, but Vlad thought that digging grass was not suited to his spiritual aptitude. Then what do I do next? Stores collect? Or area patrol? Jorge smiled as he looked at Vlad, who was facing him with shining eyes. Because the young boy in front of me had a strong heart that did not give in to being the boss of the organization. If he had still been a knight, he would have had no hesitation in making a boy named Vlad his squire. Intelligence has come in that one-armed Jack is bringing in people from outside. They say he was a knight and mercenary. Like Jorge? Okay. Like me. Jorge smiled bitterly and drank the remaining beer. The beer that he couldn't finish flowing down his rough beard. It looks like he's serious about trying this time. Vlad quietly shook his head as he listened to Jorge. Money-making one-armed Jack. He was a person who mainly worked in the private loan business, and through his abundant wealth, he was able to attract gang members and form the largest power in the back alleys. However, one-armed Jack was always as uncomfortable as Jorge, with the rose smile, and that was because of Jorge's capabilities as a knight. Even if they are numerous, a flock of sheep cannot stand against a wolf. Moreover, no matter how much money they had, truly talented people did not easily lend their swords to back alley bosses. Therefore, the real existence of Jorge was like a wall that was difficult for one-armed Jack to overcome. So, one-armed Jack is a member of the organization, and Jorge is a person himself. The two strangely balanced their power and did not invade each other. If one-armed Jack succeeded in inviting a prosecutor who could stand against Jorge, the story was bound to be different. It is true that if this happens, we are at a disadvantage. That's why I need you. Me? Vlad looked at Jorge with wide eyes when his name suddenly came out. Okay. This is something only you, a former brat in our organization, can do. Jorge was smiling. As the boss of the organization, I will give you your first task. Without a single speck of tension or fear, the blonde-haired boy who was waiting for his words was actually showing an expression of anticipation. It was always fun to watch young children with potential. Chapter 6. Drops of Blood on the Sword. 1. A man in armor was sitting on a rock, cleaning his sword. His sword was covered in red blood, as if he had caught a passing monster. You can't lie about your age. Now the winter wind is entering my bones. Although he could not be said to be old, the scars and wrinkles on his face were enough to guess the time and environment in which he lived. The man who was silently wiping the blood from his sword stopped and focused on the sound he heard. White breath, coming from the man's mouth, scattered in all directions. It's quite plausible. A small sound heard from far away. It was the sound of a cuckoo. A cuckoo was crying among the bare, dry trees beyond the created road. Are you stupid? Or are you doing it on purpose? The middle-aged man clicked his tongue, checked that no one was around, and walked off the road towards the place where he heard the cuckoo sound. Cuckoo, cuckoo. Even as people approached, the cuckoo did not move its position and continued to make sounds, as if to announce that he was here. I don't know who it is, but stop now, because I have come. In the deserted forest, a man wearing armor spoke quietly. Are you Stanga? Then a person wearing a hood walked out of the forest where it seemed like no one was there. Okay, I am a Stanga. The man called Stanga looked at the person in front of him with a fearful expression. So you are this guy named Vlad? Yes. As Vlad took off the hood he was wearing, Stanga looked at him with interest. The guide said he was from a back alley, and he had blonde hair and blue eyes. Anyone who sees you will think you come from a noble family. Here's a letter from the boss. Vlad's face frowned after hearing Stanga's words. Let's see. As Stanga slowly read the letter, his scar became strangely distorted. Vlad couldn't easily read Stanga's expression. In some ways, it looked like he was smiling, but in other ways, he had an expression that looked like he was angry. Good. My proud senior is telling me to follow the kid in front of me. That's right. He is an unpredictable man. Vlad, who was born in a back alley and was inevitably sensitive to people, evaluated Stanga that way. Follow me. While Vlad was evaluating Stanga, Stanga was also evaluating the baby in front of him. A blonde kid who ignores what he says despite intentionally creating an unpleasant atmosphere. He's someone that Jorge would like. I don't know what his skills were, but at least he was a kid who seemed worth refining. However, now he was not a driver, but a traveler who just wanted to arrive at his destination early. I guess I'll have to give it a shot here. In order to move forward comfortably, it seemed necessary to moderately massage the head of the little guy who was sticking out in front of me. I think the guy in front of me is stupid, but I don't know if I can guide him properly. It's good enough to give directions. I don't think so. Stanga smiled darkly as he looked at Vlad, who was expressing his dissatisfaction in a loud voice. How can a guy who makes the sounds of summer migratory birds in the middle of winter be so smart? Ah, Vlad looked frustrated as he listened to Stanga's words. If you think it's not here while you're on your way, they'll kill you. You idiot. Looking at Vlad, who was embarrassed, Stanga smiled, feeling that his strike was effective. Article, a word that can resonate even with a boy from a back alley. There was a being right next to me who had the title, honor, and title of knight that only those who had proven their existence could hold. Why do you keep glancing at me? What does it wear out when you look at it? Don't get lost. Don't worry. This is a road I know even with my eyes closed. Close your eyes then. That means I know that well. Even though I had just been scolded, I couldn't help but keep looking at Stanga. I knew well that Jorge was a former knight, but the atmosphere of being the boss of an organization was already more natural to him than that of a knight. However, Stanga, who was now next to him, still retained the image of the knight he had dreamed of. A long sword, leather-padded breastplate, tightly fastened gauntlets, and the sound of clanking armor. Is this your first time seeing a retired knight? Why do you keep looking at me like this? Not this close. You're a hillbilly. Where are you from? In Daisha. It's a completely rural area. In Tenyo. Stanga smiled grimly as he looked at Vlad, who didn't give up on him even though he had just punched him. I'd rather you get lost. Chop it up in one blow. I'll camp here today. Aren't people from the city naturally this cheap? Stanga grumbled, but agreed with the boy's decision to camp now. The two were wandering through the forest to avoid people's eyes, and the sun sets faster in the forest. Are you skilled? About city people? Because I can't have a home that feels like home. Stanga smiled as he watched the boy moving quickly and making camp. Surprisingly, you're even making a place for me? Because I'm Jorge's guest. Before I knew it, Vlad had prepared a bed and had managed to gather firewood and start a fire. Is there anything to eat? I have mine. What about mine? They didn't even take care of that. It's not. Stanga sighed and had no choice but to take out the beef jerky he was carrying. It seemed like a meager thing for someone wearing shiny armor to have. Once the bonfire was lit, Vlad hung the beef jerky there. Is it okay to light a fire while moving secretly? That's why I came back so far. Even if there are people here, it's okay, as long as they don't find out that I'm bringing a night nari. The saying was that even if his actions were discovered, it didn't matter, as long as his intentions were not discovered. It seems like you're having a hard time. And Stanga guessed Jorge's situation through Vlad's words. Because hiding the sword is only for stabbing, Vlad said nothing. I just confirmed it through silence. In the worst-case scenario, I could get caught. So I just told them to bring me back safely. Vlad, who felt the knight's sharp senses for the first time, was inwardly surprised. Stanga was right. He was a man who did not need to go into hiding and enter Shorah. However, the reason why Jorge bothered to hide the prosecutor named Stanga is probably because he also intends to definitely end One-Armed Jack's life in this fight. A knight is a sword. It's also a very sharp sword. A sword flying from an unexpected place would be nothing short of a great weapon. Stanga, who is now retired but was a former knight, will be able to fill that role. But are you really going to eat it alone? Stanga asked, looking back and forth between his own beef jerky and the beef jerky that Vlad had brought. Yes, 3 bales, Vlad answered, as if it wasn't worth worrying about. Tisk. Stanga quenched his appetite as he watched the beef jerky gradually ripening. But you made it look really ugly. The person who made it is not skilled. It was an unusual jerky. Rather than a sack, it looked more like a clumsy bundle of meat. However, it was a sight that whetted my appetite. It even kills the smell. The aroma produced by grilling over a fire was not much different from that produced by grilling meat. Do you have any questions for me? Suddenly? I'll answer one question for each piece of jerky you're holding. This is not an opportunity that just comes along. Vlad quietly looked at Stanga while munching on the beef jerky that Semina had made. Why is this person like this? If you want to eat it, just give me one. You have the dignity of a knight man. In essence, knights only receive fair compensation. You're retired. Still, we've done it so far. Name: Stanga. Age: 42 years old. Hey dude, why did you come here? Stanga, who caught the 2 beef jerky flying at Vlad, was momentarily speechless at the sharp question that came straight to him. Reality in emptiness. I thought he was a smart guy, but he was also quite sharp. Well, these are the words of an unsuccessful knight. Stanga responded with a bitter look on his face as he threaded the beef jerky on a tree branch. Success? One more beef jerky. This time Vlad frowned and handed me the beef jerky he was holding. Land is important. It is a foundation to stand on and a support that allows you to stand up on your own. You mean the manor? Well, that's right. Vlad knew too. The ultimate goal of knights is the manor. One of the things that made a knight something other than a commoner was the manor. Do you want to become a nobleman? And it was also like a stepping stone for knights to advance into aristocratic society. Do you want to become a nobleman? However, after hearing Vlad's question, Stanga just smiled empty-handed and quietly put the beef jerky into the fire. I just wanted to get my fair share. The flickering light of the campfire cast a strange shadow on Stanga's face, and some cast with a zane. Watching Stanga's expression subtly harden, Vlad thought that he was now standing on a line that should not be crossed. You must not cross the line, because everyone has their own world that they do not want to be invaded by. All right then, to lighten the mood and lighten Stanga's expression, Vlad decided to act like an ordinary boy. Do you know how to handle horrors? Hee. Now I see he was just a pretentious guy. In response to Vlad's question, Stanga smiled heartily and turned his head. Not all knights can handle horrors. And, even if you can handle it, using it in practice is a different matter. They're friender. So you can use it? You don't have any? Vlad thought he was acting, but he was mistaken. The boy was sincere. Article. Horror. Because what the boy dreamed of was contained in 2 words. Take it all. What? Beef jerky. Vlad hurriedly handed over the bag containing the beef jerky, afraid that Stanga would say something else. A driver takes only the fair price. Sweetheart, then shall we take some out? Hearing Vlad's words, Stanga quickly grabbed his pocket. Sometimes you need to cheer yourself up. Seeing Stanga grinning, Vlad felt his heart beating violently. You can really see it. Horrors, the essence of knights. Just to see it, it's not a waste of money to buy Jamina's handmade beef jerky. Stanga seemed to be burdened by Vlad's sparkling eyes and cleared his throat. Okay, take a good look. Vlad accepted the beef jerky that Stanga was grilling with bright eyes. Grumbling with both free hands, Stanga drew his sword. The well-maintained sword was smooth and pulled out quietly. It was like the hand shyly extended by a virtuous woman. Why do you close your left eye? I have to bring up my own world within my soul. Oh, it was an unknown word, but Vlad decided to just watch. Because Stanga was standing up, a knight standing under the moonlight in front of a bonfire. However, even in front of 2 lights, his presence was not obscured. Knight Stanga. Because he was a person who knew how to shine on his own. Look, sweetheart. Stanga kissed his sword and began muttering something. It was a conversation with the sword, and it was also like a spell that brought his world into reality. Wow! Immediately blue light began to flicker from his sword. Although it was faint and pale, it clearly contained moonlight. Even Vlad, who knew nothing, could tell. It was Stanga's own world. They were also called horrors. It's really cool. Something began to stir in the blue eyes, looking at the world. Chapter 7. Drops of Blood on the Sword. 2. Dark Night. Under the walls of the city of Shorah, there were 2 figures moving in the shadows of the castle wall. Here. Is it possible for me to pass? Instead of looking at Stanga, Vlad answered while looking around. I think it might be okay to take off the armor. Why do I have to sneak in like this? After lamenting his situation for a moment, Stanga took off his armor, as if there was nothing he could do and plunged into a small tunnel. Is this really okay? These are the oysters I used until 2 years ago. 2 years ago? Shorah, a commercial city, was a city where many merchants and supplies came and went, and as such, it was a place where search and inspection was severe. This is because tariffs had to be levied on unqualified people. This was not the case for merchants licensed by Count Bayezid, but ordinary peddlers were forced to pay customs duties. It has now become a common practice to be torn apart by guards during the process. So some peddlers found a way to enter Shorah without being ripped off, and one of the ways was to use children in the back alleys. And Vlad was one of those kids a few years ago. At least when I use it, I don't get caught, so you can rest assured. I feel so relieved. In this 4-on-4, contrary to Vlad's calm words, Stanga's expression hardened as he looked at the tunnel where the dirt crumbled when he touched it. I came here when I left the city. You're more scared than you look. Good. After hearing from Vlad that he had already used it once, Stanga gained courage and disappeared into the tunnel. He raised his head again. If you take the armor, I will kill you. Bantling. It's a pity that I haven't been able to inspire trust through my journey so far. When Vlad shrugged his shoulders with an expression that did not seem at all regretful, Stanga frowned and entered the tunnel. 2R8. As Stanga entered the tunnel, Vlad quickly bent down and put his ear to the ground. Vlad, who had more sensitive senses than others, was able to tell if there were people around through the sound of footsteps echoing from the ground. It was for this very reason that he never once failed to smuggle during his childhood. Good. After confirming that all he heard was Stanga's low cursing, Vlad put the armor he had removed into a leather bag and moved into the tunnel. It's been a while since I've been here. Vlad crawled into the tunnel, thinking he would be safe, because it did not collapse even when a Stanga larger than him entered. As Vlad came out of the tunnel, Stanga, who was waiting, began to grumble. I feel dirty. It sucks. We're all there now. Something. I feel so. Here's your armor. After handing the armor to Stanga, Vlad quickly looked around the road to confirm the direction he should go. Outside the city, it was easy to fool One-Armed Jack. Even if he was one of the bosses who ruled the back alleys, he wasn't that big of a deal when looking at the city of Shorah as a whole. However, the story has changed from now on, when we must head towards the Rose's Smile. It's better if it's moderately dirty. It's more believable to look like a beggar rather than an article. No, it's not how I look, it's how I feel. Regardless of whether Stanga was grumbling behind him or not, Vlad answered without even looking back. Let's move. Okay. Stanga moved after Vlad without any further response. The dark back alleys of Shorah. The entire alley was holding its breath to avoid the storm created by the two bosses. Follow me. It was a dark alley without a single light, but Vlad led Stanga with unstoppable steps as if he could see clearly. Something is strange. However, the alley that Vlad was walking down looked a little different from what he was used to. A downtown alley that was strangely chaotic compared to usual. Broken walls everywhere and bloodstains scattered on them. Is this the place it's supposed to be? No. Ominous traces. Seeing them, Vlad began to walk faster without realizing it. As we moved forward, the traces became closer to certainty and the closer to reality. It looks like we've already hit it big once. As Stanga said, the road that became more and more messed up as we progressed towards the Rose Smile showed to anyone that there had just been a big collision. Shit! Vlad was born and raised in a rough back alley and was accustomed to most unexpected situations, but he was still only a 6-year-old kid. I was trying to remain calm, but it was inevitable that my vision would become narrower. At that moment, Stanga's words penetrated the ears of Vlad, who was trying to hurry forward. Before you blindly move forward, check where you are now. It was a heavy but sharp voice. That voice broadened Vlad's narrowed vision and illuminated his judgment that had been in a fog. Whoa! Vlad followed Stanga's advice and leaned back against the street corner to catch his breath. And saw. There are guys watching. When Vlad regained his composure, there were new things visible in his eyes. Men lurking in the dark. Some of them looked familiar. There are those who watch over the smile of the rose. They were one-armed Jack's men. A messed-up alley, a rose's tightly closed smile. And Jack's men are staring at it across the road. The given pieces began to fit together in the boy's mind. There was an attack, but it looks like it hasn't gone over yet. Good. Stanga listened to Vlad's words and nodded quietly. No matter how talented you are with a sword and how clever you are, if you cannot use it in actual combat, it is no different from an ornament hanging on the wall. However, the baby in front of me calmly composed himself, even though he only said a few words to get his attention. It's a kid with potential. The knight had a desire to raise the boy properly, but he was only disappointed that he could not take him with him due to his current mission. We move separately. I'll tell you about the back door that only members of our organization know about. You? I'll go to the front door. It would be better to divert attention now. Vlad calmly decided his next course of action. Although Stanga, a former knight, was better than him in every way, it was entirely up to Vlad to lead him with the smile of a rose. See you later then. Okay. Vlad, who explained the location of the back door to Stanga, carefully stood up. This is my first time seeing something like this again. Vlad shrugged, thinking of Jack's men across the street. I was used to living in hiding all the time. But at this moment, I had to reveal myself. Stand out in front of someone and show yourself. The boy, who had never had such an experience, did not know. I should try it. That he was a person who had a talent for such things since he was born. To shine on your own. Vlad turned the corner with a puff of breath. As he took off his hood, his gorgeous blonde hair fluttered through the dim lights of the back alley. Look over there. It's Jorge's baby. Where have you been? Gold is eternal and noble. In the back alley, mismatched colors were walking toward the rose's smile, step by step, with a gait that is neither slow nor fast. If someone who didn't know the situation saw it, they would think it was a confident step. And if someone who knew it saw it, they would say it was a bold step. The eyes of those who were watching Rose's smile were instantly drawn to Vlad. That's why no one could notice someone's movement, taking advantage of the darkness heading behind the Rose's smile. Whoa! Taking advantage of the momentary bustle of one-armed Jack's men, standing in the dark, Vlad safely stopped in front of Rose's smile. In front of the door, which was scorched and broken here and there but was firmly closed. A situation that was certain but could not be confirmed. Vlad's hand holding the doorknob trembled slightly, but he did not hesitate. Sigh, an unpleasant sound was heard from the misaligned hinges, and Rose's smile opened the door. The first thing that welcomed Vlad there was, "Hey, Junior, why did you come so late?" It was Burly, with a bandage wrapped around his head, a broken table, and a floor covered in blood, and corpses lying everywhere. Even though it was a window, Rose's smile, which had an old-fashioned charm, was now in a state of disarray, as if it were a battlefield. Marcella is going to faint. Vlad quickly turned his head, leaving the tragic scene behind. To find someone. Your lady is safe, don't worry. I found the boss. Boss, you're always on the 4th floor. Why? Vlad frowned as he looked at Beret, who was smiling as if he knew everything. As I climbed up the stairs, which made a screeching noise, as if something had gone wrong in the chaos, a bloody smell came from in front of me. It is the smell of death. Jorge, I'm here. Okay. Thank you for your hard work. It was also like proof of victory. As I climbed to the 4th floor, I saw Jorge shirtless among numerous corpses. His red-stained back looked like a huge mountain. Vlad breathed a sigh of relief when he saw Jorge, who was wounded but seemed fine. I'm sorry I couldn't help you. No, everyone just did their job. Although he was speaking kindly with his mouth, the bandages wrapped around Jorge's upper body had already turned red. The fierce battle was good in Vlad's eyes. Are you okay? It's been a while since I've faced a knight-level player, so this is what happened. Well, I did what I had to do. There was a corpse pinned to the wall by a sword behind Jorge's back. It was a corpse wearing a nice breastplate like Jorge, but the head was gone and blood was constantly gurgling from the neck. The corpse's toes were still twitching, showing that it hadn't been long since this mess had started. The money bug hit the player first. After all, those who make money have extraordinary action skills. Marcella approached Jorge, who was dragging his tongue as he looked at the corpses, and carefully wiped the blood off with a towel. This level of treatment was natural for a male lion who protected his territory. "Did you bring it?" Eyes that were not yet alive fell on Vlad. Fortunately, Vlad was qualified to answer that brutal question confidently. "Yes, I brought you here. They should be at the back door by now." "Good." Jorge always had an innocent expression on his face, but it was different now. "I'm going to hit the moneymaker tomorrow. This time, we have to settle the matter." Jorge's eyes filled with excitement that had not yet subsided, and anger that needed to be poured out on someone were the most ferocious eyes that Vlad had ever seen. "And what did it look like? Do you think you can use the sword well? It didn't fly away at all, right?" Jorge is worried about possible variables. Indeed, the origin of the night is different. That's what Vlad thought, as he watched Jorge brace himself and worry about tomorrow. "I'm fine." Even though it was only for 2 days, the person seemed fine. Stanga has a generous side. "Your body looks sharp too. Have you lost weight? Well, if you want to live a long time, you have to take care of it." "Yes, and," the boy answered with a smile, remembering the scene he saw under the moonlight. "He's a knight who can even use aura. Tomorrow will definitely be our day." One-armed Jack tried a winning move and failed at it. The current is like a wave. If you don't catch it when it comes, it will be swept away again. Moreover, even though Jorge was injured, he was still strong, and even brought a former night prosecutor with him, so anyone would say it was a victory for Jorge. If it is, as you can see that is. "It looks like it's coming up." "What?" Sigh. As Vlad finished speaking, the sound of someone coming up from below was heard. An unpleasant sound rang out from the misaligned planks of the stairs. "What did you just say?" "Vlad?" "Yes?" Vlad was about to go down the stairs and guide Stanga, but he had no choice but to stop at Jorge's question. No, it was Jorge's distorted expression that made Vlad stop. "What did you just say?" "It's coming up." "No, before that." Jorge's expression was becoming hard as he asked the question. "Because I'm a knight who uses auras. Tomorrow will be our day." After hearing Vlad's words, a look of disappointment appeared on Jorge's face. "May Prophet." At the same time, an ominous creaking sound was getting closer. "Come behind me, Vlad," Jorge said as he pulled out the sword he had left with the corpse. The corpse of a former knight fell to the ground at Jorge's feet. But guidance, was he really an auror? Instead of answering what Jorge said, Vlad looked back. An unknown man was coming up the only staircase to the 4th floor. He came in through a back door known only to members of the organization. The man had fresh blood dripping from the sword he was holding in his hand. "Then the guy you brought in is not Stanga." From the edge of Jorge's gaze, at the end of Vlad's faith, an unknown person came up. Because Stanga doesn't know how to use auras. He was smiling. Chapter 8. Broken Nest. 1. A man in armor was sitting on a rock cleaning his sword. "You can't lie about your age. Now the winter wind is entering my bones." His grumbling sword was covered in red blood. Man, N10. Behind the rock he was sitting on, there was a corpse lying that could not be completely hidden by the falling snow, with eyes wide open that I couldn't bear to close. "You've gone quite far so far, Senior." A man was cleaning his sword and reading a bloody letter. There was a sound coming from far away in his ears. It's quite plausible. A sound that rings delicately and without interruption. It was the sound of a cuckoo. "It's been a while, Jorge." "It's checked." Instead of answering, Jorge looked at the drop of blood hanging on the tip of the man's sword. "Who did you kill?" "Security is still strict." Vlad swallowed heavily and looked at the man in front of him. The man, who I don't know what to call him anymore, was smiling at Vlad. It was a useful kid. "Why did you come here only now?" Vlad, standing behind Jorge, could feel it. Of all the people Vlad had ever seen, the biggest and strongest person was, of course, Jorge. But for now, the man walking slowly and picking up the bottle looked bigger than Jorge in front of me. "Count Gaidar has passed away. It's due." Jorge's eyes widened as he listened to the man's words. "I don't hear things like that. Due to complicated circumstances, it has not been made public yet, but everyone will know soon," the man said, swirling a glass full of alcohol, looking at Jorge. "For poor Count Gaidar, you son of a bitch." Before the man could finish speaking, Jorge rushed towards him, screaming like an animal. His movements were so agile that it was hard to believe that he came from such a large body. And, clang! Jorge's sharp blow cracked the glass, and the alcohol inside poured out. For Sigmund, the new Count Gaidar. Before he knew it, the person whom Jorge had stabbed was standing behind him. Godin. This is the first name of Sigmund, the new Count. With a loud cry coming from his lungs, Jorge's upper body became as hard as a rocky mountain. "Jorge the deserter must return. Sigmund is not my master." Muscles that had been hidden in the flesh until now are coming into their own. As it regained its original form, blood flowed from the open wounds again. Of course, the Count doesn't expect you to return quietly. However, despite Jorge's threatening appearance, the man called Godin spoke without losing his composure. "You don't even want that. You bastards. Quang. Show 70%, but hide 30%. For that moment you never know will come. Kya. Marcella." And this moment, Jorge's blow, which showed his true colors without hesitation, was truly destructive. Even though there were no horrors, half of the floor on the fourth floor collapsed with just one swing of the sword by Jorge. A blow so strong that Rose's entire smile shook for an instant. It was a nightly blow that Jorge had been hiding all along, and it was like the struggle of an animal that revealed its wounds. Vlad quickly escaped the danger area, avoiding the collapsing floor while carrying the staggering Marcella. He was agile, but his movements were as urgent. And the moment I thought I had finally escaped and looked back, what an unrealistic scene was there. Q-hook, splashing blood drops, and crumbling railings. The strongest person the boy had ever seen was falling. Down. Down. "You still make foolish choices, Jorge." By a night, with his left eye closed. With Jorge's fall, the boy's common sense and faith were breaking down. Qua! An intense noise made by a massive body. At that sound, everyone at Rosemile was startled and ran out. "Jorge!" Vlad quickly grabbed hold of the railing and looked down into the lobby. Cough. There the boy's world, completely shattered, was writhing and spitting out blood. He was the first to extend his hand to the boy who was rolling around in the back alley. He was the first to admit it, and he was the strongest person the boy had ever seen. "Boss, what is this?" He was writhing in disarray. The gang members are confused and don't know what to do in the sudden situation, and the bloodied Jorge is trying to stand up somehow. Off. The gang members on the first floor gathered around in panic, but Jorge only let out a harsh groan. Only Vlad, who had seen the whole scene, could have predicted what would happen next. Holy shit! The knight opened his left eye and was about to jump towards the first floor. The sword is clad in a blue aura that resembles moonlight. Jorge. In 2 seconds, Vlad, who saw this, warned Jorge and threw the dagger he was carrying. A blow delivered by a boy who had never really learned any martial arts, but was skilled at slinging stones. Kang! Although it was only for a moment, Vlad's actions succeeded in hindering the knight's movement toward the first floor. I was able to buy time for Jorge, who barely stood up. So, the knight's passing glance coolly penetrated Vlad's eyes. Quang! When Godin's aura came into contact with Jorge's sword, blue afterimages like moonlight enveloped the rose's smile. It was like the wind and like fog. Off. Although injured, Jorge succeeded in deflecting the blow from the aura-laden knight. It was perhaps a one-time success. Godin, Jorge, who barely managed to repel the attack, had murderous blood flowing out of his eyes. But Godin, who actually received it, was just making a subtle expression. "You should have followed orders. I am human. I don't follow such bullshit orders." "No," Godin said without wiping the smile off his face. "You are a knight." Although it was a short conversation with only a few words, many emotions were going back and forth between the two people. Just as two swords clashing against each other continued to growl. This night has been too long for me. Jorge, I want to rest now. What? But Godin had nothing more to say with Jorge. I just wanted quiet rest. It's dangerous, Vlad. Don't go down. At that moment, when no one could move easily, Vlad shook off Marcella, who was holding on to him, saying it was dangerous, and was running down to the first floor. I brought you. Embarrassment, guilt, and anger at having been deceived by someone. All kinds of emotions were mixing together in the soul of a 6-year-old boy. It wasn't the boy's fault, but Vlad didn't think so. The size of the bowl the boy was born with made me think so. As Vlad went down the creaky stairs to the lobby as if he were flying, he saw the organization members who were holding their breath, slowly standing up. No. Vlad, who realized what they were trying to do, let out a cry that was like a scream. The man called Godin is a knight who knows how to handle horrors, a being that cannot be approached by men rolling around in the back alleys. Don't do it. Vlad was about to jump from the second floor, holding on to the railing to stop them, when he felt a chill on the back of his neck. It was an ominous feeling that my sensitive senses picked up, and my natural instinct picked up. Bow! So, Vlad quickly lowered his head, following the voice that thundered in his head. Suddenly, a few strands of hair fluttered in the air from the moonlight that I could not avoid. The blue moonlight came quietly, and the dozens of roses it created burst out everywhere, with single-word screams. Hacho. Roses brought by the moonlight spread their red color everywhere. The red colors that were born from the heart and have now come out into the world were generously revealing their existence, consolation of the antique ornaments that Marcella cherished. Wetting the table where Vlad sat and sold candles. Gagging. Red colors were generously painted on the rose's smile. Wow! With the final scream of death, a terrible silence fell on the rose's smile. Vlad was crouching down, panting and ruminating on the scene that had just happened. It was just one swing of the sword. At least that's how Vlad saw it. It was a single swing that was nothing special, but the results it brought were devastating. The smile of a rose that has become quiet. This prophet. Vlad forced his shaking legs and crawled down to the first floor. Tears and saliva that I wasn't even aware of were falling to the floor. Fuck. When he finally got down to the first floor, the first person to welcome Vlad was Burley. It was Burley's body completely drained of life and hardening in the cold. Vlad looked everywhere with his bloodshot eyes, unable to control the emotions boiling inside him. Sigh. In the middle of the lobby, where no one was moving, someone was approaching, stepping on the broken wooden floor. It was Jorge. You son of a bitch. Jorge's head in Godin's hand looked at Vlad with lost eyes. It was an empty look that could no longer contain anything. Don't do it. The boy, who had lost his mind, grabbed a sword from among the corpses and charged at the knight who had summoned the moonlight. It was agile, and it was a powerful charge, like the blow of a wounded animal. Just like someone before, asleep. Although Vlad was driven by anger rather than reason, there was only one sword path imprinted on his body. Always do your best in the end. Concentrate all your mind and strength. Hit it down. Narrow your elbows. I was one dod. In an instant, the blood drops on the boy's sword created a thin line, a beautiful curved trajectory. It was a sword road. It was the first gateway to becoming a swordsman rather than a swordsman, and the path of the sword is an area that cannot be achieved with ordinary effort and skill. The boy who was stuck in the gutter was reenacting it, with only my own strength. That's great. A slash, filled with the boy's effort and anger, was fired at the knight. At that moment, even the owner of the voice that was ringing in my head looked at me in fascination. It's a great strike. However, the path the boy created was too weak to reach the world created by the knight. Wow! Godin didn't even take Vlad's sword. I just dodged it with one movement, and then threw a kick. because the boy's blow had not yet reached a level of value that would make Godin draw his sword. Quakang, quadadadang. With a loud noise, the last remaining knight of the courtesans rolled mercilessly on the blood-soaked floor. Go, take a breath, boy. You must not lose your mind. I couldn't breathe. I felt like my chest was clogged. Even the voices whirring in his head were not enough to awaken Vlad's faint spirit. It was such a powerful blow. You were born with it. I instinctively twisted my body. Godin was once again surprised by the movements the boy showed. It was a kick with enough force to break his ribs, but the boy in front of him succeeded in dodging it with his instinctive movements. You son of a bitch. It wasn't perfect though. Seeing the boy swearing softly, Godin was troubled while holding his sword. Kill me. Godin made a decision as he looked at the boy who was telling him to kill him, but his eyes were still alive. It is too precious to cut down now, even if it comes back to you later as a sharp sword. I have due. The senior, who was now holding it in his left hand, spoke. It's always fun to see what's possible. I used to say that to my past self. The boy who guided me. A knight takes only his fair share. Godin decided to think of it as a last gift to his senior. Tuk. Something fell on Vlad's head as he struggled to get up. Something black. It dubret. Vlad looked at the identity of what had fallen. It was jerky. Beef jerky, made by Jamina. My name was not Stanga. Another piece of meat fell on Vlad's head. I wasn't 42 years old. What are you doing? A blue light appeared in Vlad's eyes at Godin's humiliating treatment. This is my fair price, I will take it, Godin said, pushing his head towards Jorge's neck. But you were paid the wrong price, so I'll give it back. Vlad could not give any answer to Godin's words. Winners on top, losers on the bottom. Because it was the winner's right to decide everything. Godin turned back and said, with your life. Jorge's eyes were shaking pitifully as he lost his gaze on Godin's left hand. Don't even think about getting paid for the second beef jerky. It didn't taste good. Blood-filled teardrops fell from the boy's eyes as he looked at the shaking Jorge. I will kill you, for sure. The blue moonlight night was leaving with the sound of footsteps. The boy's world, which had existed firmly until yesterday, was shattered. The boy cried out softly as he crawled across the blood-stained floor. But the person who was supposed to listen to him had already left. Certainly, Godin. The boy's angry cry rang out towards the knight, who now knew what to call him. Only the prostitutes, crying breathlessly, were witnesses to that cry. This is the smile of a rose, a window full of red. And where the boy's world was broken, the nest, which could no longer hold anything, was filled with only muffled cries. Chapter 9. Broken Nest. 2. Even if everything was a broken nest, she was the owner of this place. So, there was still work to be done. Wake up! There was a hand that roughly lifted Vlad up from rolling on the floor. Marcella, come to your senses. Are you going to die here? Jorge, the knight of the whores. He was the boss of the back alley, where Rose's Smile was his base. But the window called Rose's Smile was not actually his. Now everyone guarding this place is dead. One-armed Jack will be here soon. Madame Marcella. It was she who was one of the flowers of the city of Shorah and the owner of the Rose's Smile. What about Marcella? I'm more worried about you than I am. You were Jorge's dagger. Jack's men won't let you go. But the boy who had poured out all his emotions until now had little left. Anger, sadness, and smart judgment. Maybe one-armed Jack will save me. He likes me. Sigh. All the prostitutes who were crying at the sharp ringing sound looked there. There was Marcella, who raised her hand, and Vlad, who looked embarrassed and caressed his cheek. Come to your senses, bantling, even tension. Madame Marcella was not an easy woman. She was a person who built a castle called Rose Smile on her own in a rough back alley. Some people even said that it was not Jorge, the knight of the courtesans, who chose her, but Madame Marcella who chose him. Listen to this, Marcella said, handing over a dagger that was lying on the floor. It was given by Jorge, and was the dagger that Vlad used to stop Godin. Do you know what the difference is between those of us who live in the back alleys and those who live across the street? Marcella. Vlad looked down at the dagger and quietly listened to Marcella's cries. Because she came to see her before the headless body of Jorge. Listen carefully. The difference between them and us is opportunity. Opportunity. Those who live across the street can get back up again, even if they fail once, because they are people who can afford it. Marcella pulled out her finger and pointed. The place was full of dead bodies of gang members. Look. What about us? It was just one failure. As Marcella shouted at Vlad, cloudy drops formed in her eyes. If we fail even once we die. Born that way? Therefore, Marcella said, pulling on Vlad's collar. Don't leave your once-in-a-lifetime opportunity in someone else's hands. Marcella was shouting to the boy, leaving behind numerous corpses. Survive somehow through your own choices. Marcella's words to Vlad were advice worth $10 million, because it was a valuable life lesson, learned through the sacrifice of one woman's life. All right. That advice, along with Marcella's tears, penetrated deep into the boy's soul. If you want to live, leave Shorah right now. And Madam's urgent cries and tears brought Vlad back to reality. That's right. Madam is right. Okay. Marcella saw the light return to the boy's eyes. I'm leaving. Right now. A red-haired girl clung to the boy's side as he stood up shakily. Jemina, I'll just support you. Don't hold on to my ankles. Get away right away. You're still staggering now. Just move it to the right place and I will fall out. It's a starry. Seeing that Jemina was willing to help her escape from danger, Vlad tried to force her away, but the girl's stubbornness did not break that much. And everyone here knew that Jemina would never run out. Please help me, Jemina, and come to the convent before dawn. All right. Madam, even if you want to go together, you have to come back. If you move together, even if you escape out of the city, you will be caught quickly. All right. When Marcella told her to break up, Jemina just nodded calmly. There was no more time. One-armed Jack's men were already monitoring Rose's smile. Even if you didn't know exactly what was going on inside, it was only a matter of time before you found out. Rose's smile without Jorge is just a piece of meat without an owner. One-armed Jack was always hungry. I will definitely come back. Vlad. Marcella smiled sadly as she looked at the boy who said he would come back. Do you know how many men have said that to me? I will be different. Marcella remembered as she listened to the boy's promise to return. That time when Jorge came with a scruffy puppy. The child who had lost his color was fed, clothed, and washed. So I had to look for the golden color again. But now it was time to let him go. Go quickly. I wanted to stay with you a little longer, Marcella said, handing Vlad the pouch. The jingling bag didn't contain much, but it was at least full of Marcella's worries. Be careful, madam. See you at the convent. The blonde boy and the red-haired girl hurriedly started going down to the basement. You could probably sneak out through the back door there. Good. Marcella, who succeeded in expelling the last traces of Jorge, wiped away her tears and looked around, eyes full of tears. There were poor lives there. They cannot live without a man to rely on. Everyone. Now Marcella had to finish, because that was the last duty of the owner. As of today, Rose's smile is closing its doors, because it was something only a prostitute who could be confident without a man could do. I will give you severance pay. Those who will stay, stay, and those who will leave, leave. And? Marcella's eyes were looking out across the boulevard. Let the children who are still virgins come to me. Everyone was sobbing. Now they will never have it again. A madame who protects them like Marcella. Knights of prostitutes who held up swords for themselves. That I will once again live a life that is shaken back and forth in someone's hands. The nest was broken. Now was the time for even the youngest birds to fly up on their own. They're all dead. Higher, the gang members guarding the back door were all separated by neat but merciless swordplay. Are you okay? Vlad? Jemina asked worriedly, looking at Vlad, who was staggering. Although the situation was urgent, Vlad had already reached the limit of his physical strength. I spent over 5 days outside in the cold. and experienced a shocking situation. At the same time, I ran into a driver and suffered minor injuries. Let's go. However, even though the energy in his body fell, the energy in his eyes did not die. The boy swore, I will definitely kill the knight named Godan. It can't end here. That's right. Let's move. Zemina began to quickly exit the alley, supporting Vlad. Go beyond the familiar areas you know, and go to the outside of the city, avoiding the eyes of one-armed Jack. As they had done so far, the boy and girl did their best to survive while hugging each other. However, the world does not always go as planned. I found it! There's Jorge's kid. One-armed Jack's hungry gaze came much faster than expected. Vlad and Zemina moved as carefully as possible, taking advantage of their background in the back alleys. But the same was true for one-armed Jack's subordinates. The greedy hyenas began to move in search of the young lion that had escaped from the group. Although it was constantly moving forward with support, it was just a movement like a struggle. Doom was approaching. Vlad, go back. No, you promised. Go to the convent, or even to Haven. I don't like it. Vlad bit his lip as he looked at Zemina, who was shaking her head, even though she was about to shed tears. Shit, you're so disobedient. I knew it would be like this. You stupid bitch. They said it would just fade a bit. Haha. Vlad sighed deeply as he saw Zemina shedding tears. How long do you think I can protect you? Young lives, leaning precariously against the wall. We came this far by supporting and protecting each other, but the muddy back alley was not willing to let the children go easily. Damn it. The weight that the girl had to carry for today was too heavy. The weight that makes it impossible to give up, even if you want to. So you have to get out. But in what way? Amidst the pounding thoughts, Vlad's steps naturally found a familiar place. First of all, I had to go inside somewhere. That way you'll be able to avoid Jack's men in the alley. Inspiration. Please open the door. The place where the boy's steps stopped was in front of the blacksmith shop. The place where the sword that I always stood and looked at for a long time was located. What should I do? I guess it's not there. But no matter how many times he knocked on the door, there was no answer from the old blacksmith. Zemina's big eyes were filled with fear as she looked at the old, unresponsive door. Vlad saw that fear and had a premonition of the future to come. One-armed Jack was that kind of person. A person who bites the wounded and collapses those who are exhausted and uses them as stepping stones. You can't do that. I couldn't make Zemina like that. Get out of the way. Light came into Vlad's blue eyes again. Ugh. Vlad pushed Zemina away, took out the dagger, and desperately twisted the lock of the forge. It was made by a craftsman and was solid and sturdy, but if you didn't think about the future, this was the most reliable method. There were moments when force was the only way. Open. The dagger containing the boy's desperation was screaming and twisting the lock on the door. May profit, and that earnestness was answered. When he sensed Jack's men slowly approaching, Vlad struck the lock whose mouth was barely open with the handle of his dagger. I saw a gap, a small opening that allows access into the dark forge. Prophet. Zemina, who is small in stature, enters the gap that opens first. Whoa! Vlad moved after him. With urgent movements, he pulled the remains of the lock that had fallen to the ground inside. I was able to enter the blacksmith shop, where there was no answer. Hee. Are you okay? Quietly. Although Vlad had exhausted all his stamina, his senses were still sharp. I can hear it. Just like when he secretly let Stanga and Godin in, he was concentrating on the sounds and keeping track of the movements of Jack's men. The sound of pounding footsteps was running here and there in the back alley. I can't go out. The sounds that filled the room reached Vlad's ears. Sigh, as one, and it was getting close enough that the girl could hear it. Zemina was trembling, covering her mouth with both hands. Where did these go? It definitely came this way. Vlad drew his dagger and leaned close to the door. The distance between the breathless children and the hyenas was only a thin wooden plank. They're young, so they're quick. Did you fall into another alley? Find it quickly. If you find the blonde-haired guy Billy, we'll give you a separate reward. And right, Nut, are you trying to get revenge for your broken tooth? In contrast to Zemina's trembling shoulders, Vlad's eyes were sinking heavily. If they notice, you have to kill them. Otherwise, you will die. Even though the dagger that Jorge left behind was twisted in an unsightly way, it could have solved that problem. The boy concentrated, because even the girl's future was hanging on his shoulders. Let's go, before it gets taken away by others. Ha! Where did all these kites get away? Vlad listened intently as he followed the signs of the men moving further and further away. That's why I didn't notice. Who is there? The movement of someone quietly happening inside the blacksmith shop. It's a Schoarra. Jack's men haven't gone far yet. Vlad was feeling frustrated and tried to move quickly. Don't move. Inspiration. Beside Vlad, there was a red-haired girl supporting him. I'm really going to stab you. A girl threatening an old blacksmith while holding a piece of metal rolling around in the blacksmith shop. You. Why are you here? Winter moonlight seeped in through the cracks in the old blacksmith shop. Only then could the old blacksmith see the girl's tears hanging pitifully reflected in the moonlight. Chapter 10. It will be a star. Put that down. It's over. As long as Old Man Young keeps his mouth shut. It was a hand as small as a child's, but the earnestness it held was real. She was trying to look threatening, but the terrified little girl was shaking with her hands and not knowing what to do. Missigant. That was the sight the old man saw. A boy who is very nervous about the approaching threat, and a girl who is crying and doesn't know what to do. Young children who had been abandoned by the world stood shabby in front of them. Jin can really sting. Hyung. Okay, so shut up. It just happens. The old man quietly looked into the eyes of the crying girl, with an eye that only time can read. There was fear in the hanging tears, but there was determination in the eyes. Okay, this kid can really sting. If only for the boy standing next to me. What's going on? Say it. As the men's voices faded away, the old blacksmith asked quietly, but the boy's mouth did not fall easily. As if it was difficult to say it out loud. I lost. It was just words floating around in his mouth. But the old blacksmith could understand them, because he had been living in the back alleys for a long time. Jorge is dead. He was a good boss. Hi, you. As soon as Jorge's name was mentioned, thick teardrops began to flow from Gemina's eyes. I understand the situation. So let go of the ugly things first. You can do it. Hi, no. However, even though her emotions were broken, Gemina knew very well what she had to do. Give me the sword. What? Vlad must be sent away, out of this city. Give me that thing that was hanging. Even if you get out of the city safely, you could still be killed by monsters. No, but this bitch. Although she was rambling, there was nothing wrong with what Gemina said. Even if we escaped One-Armed Jack's eyes, and escaped Shorah, it was now dark dawn, and a cold winter day. It was a very harsh time to move to the next village without proper preparation. No joke. If Vlad dies, I will die too. So give it to me. The blade in the girl's hand reached under the old man's chin. This bitch! Although it was held in a cute hand, the sharp edge did not disappear. The girl's tear-covered eyes were swirling with emotions that even she could not control. Are you crazy? Take out your sword. The old blacksmith felt deep bitterness as he watched Zemina threaten him by telling him to hand over his sword. Okay, this was the nature of the people who lived in the back alleys. The nature of people who can survive only by stealing from others. I was like that too. And the time has come for the little ones in front of me to be like that too. Just like you did. Gemina! Put it down! Vlad's muffled cry was heard, but Gemina's fingertips were still shaking dangerously. The girl made up her mind. To swing what is in your hand, because I was prepared to do anything to save the boy. Gemina! The blade of the dagger flashed along with the boy's muffled cry. To every part. The old blacksmith closed his eyes, expecting something sharp to dig into his throat. I will pay you back. However, the direction the blade the girl was holding was not towards the old blacksmith. This may not be enough, but I will definitely pay you back later. I swear. The old man opened his eyes and froze as he saw the things fluttering in front of him. A curly red color fills my vision. It was the only thing the little girl was proud of. Red hair. It's been a while. Please give it to me. Please. A girl who gave up what she was most proud of for what was most precious to her. The girl's eyes, full of earnestness, had not yet been colored by the back alley. The girl's eyes, filled with tears, were looking at a different place than she was back then. Under. The old man, whose eyes were burning from the dazzling flames in front of him, turned his head to look at the boy. Are you going to leave? Yes. The children in front of me were trying to do the things I had dreamed of my whole life, but had not been able to do, with wings that have not yet ripened. Little things bother me so much. The old man was an adult. There were things adults had to do for children, even without getting anything in return. Even more so if they are children with potential. Follow me. The old man decided to raise his head and look at the stars, just for today. It was something I wanted my whole life, but couldn't do. Late at night. A back alley that looked quiet on the outside, but was full of hungry eyes. There an old blacksmith and a short boy were pushing a cart. It's so heavy. Don't talk nonsense, just push. In the back alley where everyone was holding their breath, the only sound was the creaking of the cart. The place they were heading to was one of the outskirts of Shorah. It was a dumping ground for the city's overflowing garbage, and a place where only those at the bottom of the back alley life lived. So it's a place that people don't find easily. Every time I come here, I can't get used to it. Even though it was the middle of winter, I could feel the stench wafting up my nose. If even this place is blocked, this was the last time. One-Armed Jack's men were already positioned throughout the back alleys. It was unknown whether it was to catch any of Jorge's gang members who might still be alive, or to find an unknown massacre, but One-Armed Jack wanted to catch everything that tried to escape from his eyes. So the old blacksmith and Jamina had no choice but to come all the way here. Inspiration. However, contrary to the couple's wishes, Jack's men were already in place here. Why? Why did you come here this late at night? You wouldn't know it if you saw it? Take out the trash? Are you already tired of snow at that age? So what does this look like? You guys. The old man tried to be confident in the face of the venomous hyenas. But why throw it away now? The old blacksmith was treated well because he had been living in the back alley for a long time, but Jack's men had something to find now. Then you should throw it away now. All this time you guys have been blocking the alley, preferring not to fight. The blacksmith shop will explode with all the things I haven't been able to throw away. What is he? One of Jack's men nodded and pointed to the boy next to the old man. Because as far as they knew, the old blacksmith had always worked alone. I was old and had less energy, so I brought him in and offered him some bread. Or you guys should push it for me. For a moment, it was correct in every detail, but confirmation was needed at this time. Don't move. The boy pushing the cart began to panic as he saw the man approaching him. Stay still. Today is a day when swords may come out instead of fists. Ater. In the end, the boy was grabbed by the hood by a rough hand. Why are you like this? It's fucking hard. Really? Passing. It was a red-haired boy. Judging from the dirty lumps of charcoal on his face, he must have had a rough tumble in the blacksmith shop. What are you looking for, you damn people? Jorge's blonde brat. He was the only one without a body. And Tisk, the man doing the inspection, clicked his tongue and spoke less. And what? If you're not going to tell me, can I leave now? Just one more. The man turned his head and gave an order to someone. Hey, nigger, check this cart. The three people who were holding their breath swallowed their saliva as the man spoke. Don't let the dust fly here. Yes. Zamina looked at the man approaching the cart with trembling eyes. A huge man wearing ugly old clothes. The man's skin was black. Go to that guy. Nimmy. The old man began to push the cart, complaining in a trembling voice. Although he was acting calm on the outside, the old man's back was already wet with sweat. Should I have gone somewhere else? But it was too late to regret it. There was nowhere else to go but here anyway. I came here with my last hope, but one-armed Jack had his eyes set on the dirtiest parts of the city. You brought a lot, because a lot has accumulated over the years. The old man, answered the black-skinned man in a dejected voice. Let's check. At that moment Jamina's eyes met the dark-skinned man, who was trying to lift the cart. The answer. Grating to do. Jamina hurriedly lowered her head, but she thought she might have recognized her, because the man in front of me was someone who knew Jamina. It's dusty, probably because it's trash from a blacksmith shop. I need to move it a little further forward. The dark-skinned man muttered to himself and pushed the cart forward. Two people quietly follow him. But why did you cut your hair? 2. As the people around him moved away, the man spoke to Jamina in an indifferent voice. What are you talking about? She barely answered with a trembling voice, but Jamina bit her lip tightly out of embarrassment that the man recognized her. End quote. At the same time, the piles of trash contained in the cart began to subtly collapse, creating a gap just enough for a sword to stick out. Maybe it's because his front and back are flat, but he's the perfect guy to cut his hair. The dark-skinned man was talking to Jamina, but his eyes were looking at someone inside the trash pile. If you do that, no one will recognize you. Perhaps because the big man was pushing it, the cart the old man brought was moving away from Jack's men without hesitation. I guess this will be enough. As he walked away from the men who were checking him, the dark-skinned man took out a skewer. It was an unsightly, rusty skewer, but in Jamina's eyes it looked sharper than any other famous sword. This is my job, Pook, and he stabbed it mercilessly into the pile of carts. As the man started poking the garbage pile here and there with a skewer, Jamina closed her eyes as if she couldn't bear to look at him. Whether Jamina closed her eyes or not, the dark-skinned man continued to stab the skewer at the pile of trash on the cart. I heard that Haven launched a boat on the river, Shalls of the Main, cleverly avoiding spaces where only one person would sit. All of Jack's men have flocked there now. I heard there must be a reason why the half-asshole guy put the boat on the river. The side this wide doomant. What are you talking about? Jamina pretended not to notice until the end, but Vlad, who was hiding inside the cart, could understand what the black-skinned man was saying. Just no. Good. Passing. Thanks. Otar. A small sound came from inside the cart, but the man called Otar just turned his head as if he didn't hear it. Go. As soon as the word to pass was given, the old man and the red-haired girl quickly clung to the cart and started pushing it. This is how I repaid the 40 silver my brother owed me. A dark-skinned man spoke from behind a passing cart. The price of life can only be paid with life. With the last words of the man who paid off his debt, the cart moved again, with a creaking sound, towards the hole leading to the outside of the city wall. As the hole got closer, sadness filled the girl's eyes. Now it was time to say goodbye. Bye. Vlad, an old man and a girl, pushed a cart toward the mountain of trash that would lie beneath the hole. You have to be healthy. Even though Jamina was crying, she thought about the boy's safety until the last moment. Shoota AA. As soon as the handle of the cart rose to the end, the girl's tears fell. Do you have to come see me? Now, with the tears shed by the red-haired girl, there was trash falling outside the city, under the moon in the night sky. They were shabby things that no one in the city cared about. Even if no one notices, I hold on to what shines. Ha! From atop a mountain of trash outside the castle walls, the boy looked up at the night sky. My vision was blurred with tears, but the sparkling things in the night sky were still there. Stars in the night sky. But today, only one star was shining beneath the ground. The star the boy was holding tightly was made from the old man's dream and bought with the girl's tears. I will definitely come back, even if it's not high up in the night sky. Even if you're stuck in a gutter where no one can see. If you want yourself to shine, if you still have light in your heart, then it would be a star, as if shining in the boy's heart.